I froze, breath caught in my throat. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers and shattered on the marble floor. It was impossibly real. Was he my husband? After 27 years believing her husband died in a plane crash, a woman's world unravels when he walks into her retirement party with a key, a question, and a secret that changes everything. But before we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, Story Store, and please share your thoughts about this story in the comment section. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers and shattered on the marble floor. Laughter turned to gasps. The music died mid-note. I froze, breath caught in my throat. Standing in the doorway of the retirement hall, alive, solid, and impossibly real, was my husband, Nathan. Nathan, who had died in 1998. His eyes scanned the room, past the colleagues, the catered buffet, the bouquet-laden stage. They landed on me. My knees threatened to give out. He looked older, yes, his once dark hair now streaked with silver. A faint scar above his right eyebrow I didn't recognize, but it was him. No doubt, the same angular jawline, the same steady eyes that once promised me forever. He took a step forward. I stumbled back, nearly tipping the cake table. My boss was still holding the mic, open-mouthed, as murmurs rippled through the crowd. My heart pounded, not just from shock, but from something deeper, a tremor of recognition, of something unfinished. Nathan reached into his coat and slowly pulled out a key, small brass, attached to a faded tag that read 213. He held it up between two fingers like a symbol, his gaze never leaving mine. "I have one question, Amelia," he said. His voice was older, too, rougher, like it had been used in ways I couldn't imagine. "Will you come with me?" The room vanished around me. The clinking glasses, the gawking faces, even the retirement plaque with my name engraved in gold. None of it mattered, only him, only this impossible moment. I took one breath and nodded. The last time I saw Nathan, he was boarding a small charter plane for a quick business trip to Montreal. He kissed my cheek at the gate and promised he'd be back by the weekend. It was a rainy afternoon. He wore his gray wool coat and carried the old leather briefcase I'd given him on our anniversary. Hours later, the call came. The plane had gone down somewhere in the Rockies. Mechanical failure, they said. No survivors. The wreckage was barely identifiable. Bits of the fuselage, a scorched wallet containing his ID, and a few personal effects retrieved from a snow-covered ridge. There was no body to recover, just enough remains for them to call it conclusive. I remember the funeral clearly. Closed casket, heavy rain, the way my fingers trembled as I clutched the folded flag, the way I felt hollow for years. And now, 27 years later, Nathan stood before me, not a ghost or a hallucination, but real, breathing. Older, changed. We drove in silence, the city giving way to winding back roads, headlights cutting through a dusk that felt surreal. My hands trembled in my lap. My mind spiraled with questions. At last, I turned to him and whispered the one that mattered most. "Where have you been?" Nathan didn't look at me right away. Instead, he reached into his coat and tapped the key in his pocket. "I couldn't tell you," he said softly. "Not then. But I can now, if you come." And somehow, I knew I would. We drove for hours through dark, unfamiliar countryside. Nathan said little, and I couldn't bring myself to fill the silence. My mind raced through decades of grief, doubt, and now, this impossible unraveling. I kept glancing at him, searching for proof that he was real. Every detail confirmed it. The way he drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, the faint crease in his brow when he concentrated. It was him. Near midnight, we pulled up to a quiet, ivy-covered inn nestled among pine trees. It looked like it belonged to another century. Nathan parked around the side, away from the front entrance, and turned off the engine. "Come on," he said. Inside, the innkeeper didn't blink at our late arrival. Nathan handed her a slip of paper. She nodded and handed him a key without a word. Room 213. The hallway smelled of cedar and something older, dust perhaps, or secrets. The room was plain, warm, and softly lit. In the center stood a single object, a wooden box, weathered but well kept. Nathan closed the door behind us and gestured to it. "What you find inside will start to explain everything." With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside, passports in multiple names, newspaper clippings, old maps scrawled with military symbols, and a photograph, Nathan, a woman I didn't know, and a boy. My breath hitched. "That's my partner. For cover," he said quietly. "The boy isn't mine, but they became family." I sat on the edge of the bed, the photo trembling in my hands. Nathan remained standing, watching me with something like regret etched into every line of his face. "I didn't die in that crash," he said at last, "but someone else did, and he had my ID." He explained it slowly, carefully, like peeling back layers of a life I never knew existed. After the crash, he was found alive by a covert government unit, a group he'd once worked with on a classified level, years before we met. They offered him two choices: disappear entirely or return home and risk everything, and everyone he cared about. They said if I tried to contact you, you'd become a target, that the people we were watching would go after you. "So you chose to vanish?" I said, voice shaking. "I chose to protect you," he replied. I watched from afar. For years I glanced at the other contents of the box: fake IDs, surveillance notes, photos from foreign cities. "And her?" I asked, nodding to the woman in the photo. "A cover. She was an agent, too. We lived as a family, but it was never real, not like us." I wanted to believe him. Part of me already did. But the life I thought I knew had cracked wide open. And this was only the beginning. From a hidden pocket inside the box, Nathan pulled out a slim USB drive. Matte black. Unmarked, except for a faint scratch across one side, almost like a fingerprint. He plugged it into a compact laptop and opened a folder labeled simply Marigold. "What is this?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened a series of images, surveillance photos, of me. There I was at the grocery store, at my office. Even a blurry shot of me on a solo trip to Italy in 2011. My stomach twisted. "They never stopped watching you," he said. "Even when I wasn't allowed to contact you. I made sure someone always did." The folder went deeper. Documents, names, faces, politicians, CEOs, scientists. A web of connections between powerful people, all linked to a secretive project. Marigold. Nathan's voice dropped to a whisper. "This is what I've been working on for the last 2 decades. Infiltrating, gathering intel, exposing traitors on the inside. Marigold isn't just surveillance, it's control." He clicked to a final image, a dossier with my name on it. "Why am I in this?" He looked at me then, eyes heavy with truth. "Because you're not just involved, Amelia. You're the final piece. They've known it longer than you have." I stared at the screen. My own face stared back, and I had no idea who I really was. We left the inn before sunrise, the sky still ink black, stars fading into the chill of morning. Nathan said we couldn't risk staying. "They've probably traced the USB login. We're exposed now." His words barely had time to settle before we heard it. an engine in the distance, too loud for countryside roads. A black SUV rounded the bend behind us, tires spitting gravel. "They found us," Nathan muttered, slamming the accelerator. The Land Rover roared to life, and we tore down the winding roads, headlights flashing like warnings in the rearview mirror. My pulse thundered as we weaved through forested turns and over narrow bridges. The SUV stayed close, too close. Nathan turned sharply onto an unmarked dirt path. "Hold on." The path led to what looked like an abandoned train yard, rusted tracks overtaken by weeds. He stopped near a collapsed freight car and jumped out. "This way." We ran, him leading, me chasing his silhouette through shadows, until he reached a rusted service door hidden behind old crates. He punched in a code. The door creaked open. Inside was a tunnel, dimly lit and cold. A man waited at the far end, still as stone. Nathan turned to me. "This is where it really begins." And somehow, I knew he was right. The man waiting in the tunnel was tall, lean, and impossibly still. His eyes tracked every movement, calculating, unreadable. He didn't flinch when we entered. "Elliot," Nathan said, "my handler." Elliot gave a nod, not a greeting but a confirmation. His voice was low and clipped. "We don't have long." He handed me a small device, barely larger than a matchbox. It vibrated the second it touched my palm. I looked at the screen. A message flashed across it. "She's the last piece." I looked up slowly, heart hammering. "Who's she?" Elliot's gaze was steady. "You?" I stared at him, then at Nathan. "What does that mean?" Nathan exhaled. "You've been part of this longer than you realize, before I disappeared, before the crash. You were closer to Marigold than anyone. You just don't remember." What are you saying, that I was involved?" "Not just involved," Elliot said. "You may have built part of it." The tunnel suddenly felt colder. My memories, blurry moments, strange dreams, forgotten gaps, surged forward like shadows around a flame. Nathan placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "This isn't just about what I've done, Amelia. It's about what you locked away." And I understood my past wasn't lost. It was hidden. We drove for hours, crossing state lines, moving like ghosts on forgotten highways. Nathan didn't say much, and I didn't press him. My thoughts were a cyclone. Flashes of doubt, disbelief, and something else I hadn't felt in years. Instinct. By nightfall, we reached our destination. A drained lake, its muddy basin cracked and dry. At the far end, half-sunken and cloaked in overgrowth, stood a house. Weather-worn, silent, buried by time. "We lived here for a month," Nathan said quietly. "Back in '95. You don't remember it, but you will." Inside, the house was surprisingly intact. Dust coated everything, but the structure was sound. Nathan led me down to the basement, where an old trunk sat beneath a tarp. He knelt and opened it. Inside, papers, photos, and something that made me stop breathing. A journal, leather-bound, with my name etched inside. I opened it, my handwriting. "I've never seen this," I whispered. "Yes," Nathan said. "You have. You wrote it just before I left. The entries were fragmented. Dreams, sketches, names, symbols I half recognized, codes I couldn't quite grasp. It felt familiar and alien all at once. You weren't just married to someone in the mission, Amelia," Nathan said. "You were the mission." The pages trembled in my hands. Something inside me was waking up. A name echoed throughout the journal. V. H. Vienna. It appeared in margins, in code, even scribbled backward across entire pages. Nathan said it was our next step. We traveled under false names with forged documents from the box. Every move was calculated, every airport transfer a test. But Vienna was waiting, cold, elegant, and full of buried truths. The address led us beneath the city, into a labyrinthine network of tunnels once used during the Cold War. Deep inside, behind a vault door that required 3 separate keys and a retinal scan, Nathan's scan, was a room. I stepped in, breath caught. Inside were reels of film stacked in steel crates, surveillance footage from around the world, a locket, mine from childhood. I hadn't seen it in decades, and then, the strangest item of all, a sealed letter. Addressed to me, from my late uncle, who'd been declared mentally unwell in 1984. Hands shaking, I opened it. "Amelia," it began. "If you're reading this, it means the program survived. It means they found you." He described Project Marigold, its origins, the algorithms I helped create, and the reason my memory had to be erased. Not because I was unstable, but because I was the only one who knew how to dismantle it. Nathan watched me in silence. "My uncle was never insane," I whispered. "He was warning me." "And now," Nathan said, "you're the only one who can finish what he started." Back in a quiet, nondescript building just outside Zurich, Nathan introduced me to a woman named Dr. Ilse Merrick, a cognitive specialist in encrypted memory recovery. I was skeptical, terrified even, but the journal, the vault, the letter, they were pieces of me I didn't remember writing. "If your mind protected information," Dr. Merrick explained, "it means it was trained to. This isn't forgetting, it's intentional." The procedure wasn't invasive. No machines drilling into my brain. Just sensory immersion. Sounds, smells, even the feel of old objects I once owned. Memory triggers designed to draw out what I'd hidden from myself. It began with flashes. A lab with white walls and soundproof glass. Screens of code. People calling me by another name, Mira. I was younger, sharper, someone fearless. I remembered developing something powerful. An algorithm buried in human cognition. Something no device could steal. Only a mind could hold it. Then came the betrayal. A partner, someone I trusted, selling access to Marigold's framework. I volunteered to bury it. We called it the mirror key, designed so even I couldn't retrieve it without specific conditions. Nathan was there, watching me, saying goodbye. When I woke from the session, my cheeks were wet with tears I hadn't realized were falling. "I wasn't just in Marigold," I said. "I built it, and I locked it inside myself." Nathan nodded. "And now they know you remember." The room felt smaller, the danger closer. This wasn't just memory, it was a countdown. We returned to the U.S. under the radar, traveling through quiet back channels arranged by Elliot. Our destination, a botanical conservatory outside Washington, D.C., officially a research center for rare flora, but in truth, it was something else entirely. Nathan called it the Garden of Spies. Every plant, every greenhouse was a veil. Hidden among the ivy and orchids were micro-listeners, retinal scanners disguised as garden lights, and rooms built to erase or recover memory. It was here, in 1997, that I had finalized the mirror key algorithm. It was also here that I had been betrayed. In a secluded chamber behind a wall of bioluminescent moss, we found her. Agent Wren, once a friend. Now the architect of the rogue Marigold Syndicate. "You always had the mind they wanted," Wren said, stepping out from the shadows. "I just gave them the access they needed. You stole everything," I said coldly. "The code, the structure. You turned it into a weapon." She smiled. "And you were the last piece missing." Wren revealed her goal. Marigold would no longer be a hidden tool. It would become public control, predicting behavior, influencing decisions at a global scale. But your mind, she said, eyes gleaming, still holds the final algorithm, and I need it. Nathan stepped between us, gun drawn. But I knew this wouldn't end with bullets. This was a war of memory, and I had just remembered how to fight. The leak was swift and surgical. With Elliot's help, we uploaded every file, every surveillance tape, every piece of evidence exposing the Marigold Syndicate. Politicians, CEOs scientists. Their secrets spilled across the world like ink on water. News outlets couldn't keep up. Denials collapsed under the weight of truth. Agent Wren vanished before authorities arrived, but her empire crumbled. Marigold, as the world knew it, was over. But for Nathan and me, it was only the beginning. We relocated to a coastal safe house, quiet, simple, ours. The world was still loud with the chaos we had unleashed, but in that little space between ocean breeze and quiet mornings, we finally breathed. One evening, as the sun melted into the sea, Nathan joined me on the balcony. He held a small box, but it wasn't a ring. Inside was a key. "The one from the party," I whispered. He nodded. "It was never for a room. It was for you. For the version of you locked away. For the life we never got to finish." He knelt, not with ceremony, but with hope. "Will you start again with me?" I looked at him. Older, weathered, but still the man I loved. 1,000 memories, real and recovered, flashed behind my eyes. I took his hand. I never stopped. And just like that, the past became a prologue. Not to what we had lost, but to what we were finally free to begin.